Call the State Government Finance Committee to order. Members, in your packet, you have the minutes from March 27th. The Representative Quam, you want to move the minutes from March 27th?
I so do, Madam
Representative
Chair.
Quam moves the minutes from March 27th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the minutes are adopted. Members, we're going to start off with some amendments here. I'm going to start with the A6 amendment. Mr. Gehring, would you walk us through that, please?
Madam Chair, the A6 amendment is a technical cleanup amendment to address some issues that came up yesterday that we found in the drafting of the bill. So lines 1.3 and 1.4 adds constitutional office to Article 1, Section 39. This is the section of the bill that requires agencies that are subject to reductions in the bill to prioritize reducing central administration costs and to preserve public-facing services. So constitutional officers would be clearly subject to that section with this amendment. Line 1.5 of the amendment updates the reference to June 30, 2017 in the section that repeals the state auditor's enterprise fund and billing process. Or excuse me, at 1.5, this relates to the freeze and the rates that the state auditor must charge to local governments. Line 1.6 deletes 2017, inserts 2019, and the section of the bill that was raised by the chief tax court judge yesterday related to the managerial pay increases. And 1.7 to 1.12 updates some technical errors in the drafting of Representative Krisha's rulemaking bill. Subdivision 6 on 1.9 to 1.12 appears as new language, but this is actually being recodified from elsewhere in the bill. So this is not new policy. This is just a technical correction in the way the bill is drafted.
Yep.
Okay, members, questions to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A6 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the amendment is adopted. We're going to do the A4 amendment next. Representative Nash, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to offer the A4.
And would you like staff to walk through that, Representative Nash? Or would
Yes,
you,
thank you, Chair.
Mr. Gehring?
Madam Chair, Representative Nash, the A4 amendment is an amendment to the minutes chapter of law, chapter 16E, and what it does is eliminate some exemptions that currently exist that provide that the state retirement systems and pension plans, State Board of Investment, Campaign Finance Board, State Lottery, and the Statewide Radio Board are not subject to minute. So with this amendment, if adopted, those entities would be subject to the consolidation required by law.
Okay, members, questions to that amendment? Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Representative Nash, is this controversial at all, this particular amendment, or who gave it to you, Jim? Anything you can tell me about it?
Representative Nash?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Representative Johnson, I never do anything controversial. No, Representative Johnson, good question. It's early, so I thought I'd go for the joke. I think we've heard from Minute, particularly yesterday, that essentially data is just data, and moving these in is going to provide some further efficiencies. And these holdouts have really kind of dropped the plow on the idea of minute and consolidation, and them saying, well, no, this is not what we're looking for. So that's the intent of this amendment.
Representative Johnson?
Okay, I don't know if there's anyone from Minute that wants to say anything. I guess they can if they want. But
Okay.
nobody does. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members? All those in favor of the A4 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The amendment is adopted. I'm going to do the A1 amendment. Mr. Gehring, you want to walk us through the A1 amendment?
Madam Chair, the A1 amendment subjects the Child Support Task Force that is currently meeting to the open meetings law.
Okay, members, questions to this? Seeing on the A1 amendment. Representative Johnson?
Last one.
To research, Madam Chair, can you just restate what you said again? What the A1 does?
Mr. Gehring?
Madam Chair, Representative Johnson, the A1 amendment subjects the Child Support Task Force to the open meetings law.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The amendment is adopted. We're going to do the A2 amendment. Representative Detmer? Do you want staff to walk through it?
Yes, and I can make some comments too.
Okay. Mr. Gehring?
Madam Chair, the A2 amendment is a bill that's, it contains language that's in a bill currently being carried by Representative Cornish, and it provides some disclosure requirements for individuals who receive veterans benefits.
Representative Detmer?
Yeah, just, it's a common sense thing. When veterans are asking for help for some of their benefits, most of those questions can be answered through the county service officers. So it's important that they're directed towards that source first, so.
Okay. Members, questions to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A2 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The amendment is adopted. We're going to do the A5 amendment. Representative Omar, I believe this is your amendment. To your amendment.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. The A5 amendment removes the cap for, it removes the 1% cap. One of our last compensation contracts that was negotiated was up to 2.5, and I think we currently are able to negotiate and allow bargaining units to do so, and I think the cap is unnecessary.
Okay. Members, I'm going to encourage you to vote no on this amendment. Any other questions on this amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A5 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. The amendment is not adopted. We have the A3 amendment, Representative Johnson, and Representative Flanagan, just in time. Would you like staff to walk through your amendment, Representative Flanagan? Sure. Mr. Gehring?
Madam Chair, the A3 amendment is Representative Flanagan's amendment. It contains language that comes from Representative Iwakim's bill. This would replace what's currently in the bill that requires the Department of Revenue to provide a free electronic filing system, and instead requires the Commissioner of Revenue to do a written report to the legislature by March of 2018 on that topic.
Representative Flanagan, to your amendment.
Thank you. So the benefits of this amendment, I think, is that authors, Representative Iwakim and Senator Rest on the Senate side, have worked with all stakeholders over the last 2 years to come up with this proposal. This is a thoughtful approach. It takes time to figure out what will work. It allows the Department of Revenue to work with current vendors to see what the cost would be to provide this free service for everyone. And if people are able to file their state income taxes online at the same time as their federal taxes, it keeps them linked to make fraud harder. It is a private-public partnership that allows people to have choices. It does not replace a private sector with a government-run program. And by using a private vendor, it allows wizarding function to help folks work through their taxes to avoid mistakes. It's not just a PDF that they can fill out or a form that's populated that's already on W-2s. So basically, the only information that Department of Revenue has currently. So that is to the bill, and I think it's a thoughtful approach that takes time for us to figure out what it would really take to do free filing.
Okay. Members, I'm going to encourage a no vote on this amendment. When we heard Representative Iwakim's bill in committee, she had an appropriation of $175,000 to do this task. Minnesota already offers a free file for a vendor-based free file up to, I believe it's $64,000 here in the state of Minnesota. So this is just redundant for what we already have. So we would be repeating the same thing that we already have. So members, any other questions? Representative Olson.
So thank you, Madam Chair, to the point about this one and the cost that you said with the fiscal note, but my understanding is what we have in for the free tax filing piece, your bill, we have no appropriation to the Department of Revenue for that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But at the same time, we're also cutting the Department of Revenue. Is that correct?
You bet.
Okay, so I would go ahead and support this because this seems to have less of an effect on the Department of Revenue at a time when we're cutting the Department of Revenue.
Okay. Members, any other questions or thoughts? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A3 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. The amendment is not adopted. Members, we have the, what was this, what this called then? DE, Mr. Gehring, how do I phrase this? A17-299?
Madam Chair, there's one more oral amendment to add to the bill.
Okay. All right, Mr. Gehring, help us out.
This is also just a technical correction to the drafting on page 11 of the bill, line 26. There's an incorrect reference to the Minnesota Public Educational Radio Stations. It's actually, the full title is Association of Minnesota Public Educational Radio Stations. So the oral amendment would be line 11.26 before Minnesota, insert association of.
Members, did you all get that? Okay, all those in favor of the oral amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the amendment is adopted. Do we have anything else, Mr. Gearing? Okay. Members, to the, oh, that's right, yes, we were going to, Commissioner Franz, we had some questions for you. Thank you for reminding me. Commissioner Franz?
Good morning, Madam
We
Chair.
have some members that have some questions for you. Representative Nash wanted to probably start here. So Representative Nash?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Representative.
Commissioner, yesterday, we had chatted with you, just distribute those. Yesterday, we had talked about a couple different things in your testimony, and the topic of gain sharing came up. And you, I believe, said that it was reckless and irresponsible of us to cut that. And to frame the conversation initially, Mr. Gehring, would you mind reading the statute, that covers gain sharing and sort of outline for us the requirements of gain sharing?
Mr. Gehring?
And while he's doing that, while he's getting to that, since I threw him a curveball, members, I'm distributing to you something that you got in your email earlier in the month, I think it was this month, about the gain sharing program. We got a spreadsheet that I think is kind of interesting. It's got some projects that were put in for gain sharing payment. And Commissioner, I appreciated yesterday your conversation that said that the buck stops with both you and the governor on these issues. So I think if Mr. Gehring's ready, I'd like him to read the requirements for gain sharing before we go into the line of questioning.
Mr. Gehring?
Madam Chair, Representative Nash, so you can see the existing language for the employee gain sharing system on page 41 of the bill. This is being amended by the bill in front of you. So the existing law reads as follows. It's section 16A.90. It says the commissioner shall establish a program to provide one-time bonus compensation to state employees for efforts made to reduce the cost of operating state government or for ways of providing better or more efficient state services. The commissioner may authorize an executive branch appointing authority to make a one-time award to an employee or group of employees whose suggestion or involvement in a project is determined by the commissioner to have resulted in documented cost savings to the state. Before authorizing awards under this section, the commissioner shall establish guidelines for the program, including but not limited to, 1, the maximum award is 10% of the documented savings in the first fiscal year in which the savings are realized, up to $50,000. 2, the award must be paid from the appropriation to which the savings accrued. And 3, employees whose primary job responsibility is to identify cost savings or ways of providing better or more efficient state services are generally not eligible for bonus compensation under this section, except in extraordinary circumstances, as defined by the commissioner.
Representative Nash?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner. So I would assume that you're pretty familiar with this program.
Madam Chair, Representative, and I'm not sure what program you're referring to.
The gain sharing program.
Yes.
Commissioner, you're familiar with the gain sharing program, correct?
Oh, Madam Chair, I said yes.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I couldn't hear
Representative
over
Nash?
some of the conversation. Madam Chair, thank you. And Commissioner, did you get one of these handouts from the page?
Madam Chair, Representative, I did.
Okay, so first of all, I guess my question is, why the redactions? Because I find that odd. It's public information of people that are getting money from the state, and I'm just curious as to that. And we'll come back to that. But on the second page, there is an individual, I think it's number 15, that I'm going to read this because I'm trying to figure out what the amount saved on this was, because by statute it should be $7,500 or so. But the description of why this person received the disbursement was an above and beyond performance as Assistant Division Director during one of the busiest legislative sessions, hired and trained multiple, coordinated several projects, coordinated the HRM move, all with a smile and a can-do attitude. And I think that's great that we have smiles and can-do attitudes, but my question is, did that actually save $7,500, and what were the metrics that were used? Because according to the bill and according to the statute, it's a law that says that you're supposed to save and demonstrate that you saved money. And to date, we've yet to hear that your department has actually saved money and can demonstrate. When Mr. Pollard was here and we asked him, he essentially said, we don't really do this program. We just kind of give this reward money away. And since you weren't here, I thought, this was a great time to ask you that question. Have we actually saved any money?
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Representative, well, first of all, I haven't seen this document before. And it's usually helpful if you want information to send the document ahead of time so that I can look at it and discuss it. So it makes it difficult to look at a document and not having seen it before. But secondly, the most important point is that on July 15, 2015, we reported to Chair Anderson and at the time Chair Saxog on the gain sharing report, or the legislative report requiring that we report on that, where we spelled out in detail the way that we had been able to implement the Achievement Award process to reward people for exemplary duty, for cost savings. Now, we didn't have a program in place to actually characterize and calculate the actual savings. So part of the issue that we have raised in this bill that we want to talk about today is the fact that there is a cost to implement a structure to calculate the actual savings that are made. As you would suggest, Representative, we simply don't want to provide money to people who we can't establish that there was a savings. Savings are difficult to calculate sometimes on certain programs. For example, as I said yesterday, we saved $20 million just by implementing our premium relief program instead of the legislative program in January to provide relief for citizens. Am I in line for a gain sharing award under that statute? I don't think so. But the point is, it's difficult to budget for and know exactly what a cost saving is. So we need to implement so we would have to build a program where we would have people who would review each one of these applications for a gain sharing cost savings, which is what, if the statute requires, that's what we'll do. But we don't have that structure in place. We weren't given any money several years ago when this law was passed to implement that program. We implemented a program with achievement awards that we felt that satisfied the statute in principle, and a lot of other states use the same process where they use achievement awards or something like that. And so we would require some additional staff to process and review the different award applications under this statute, Representative.
Representative Nash?
And thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Commissioner, if I'm correct, and I think maybe Ms. Roberts can correct me if I'm wrong, but the neighborhood of amounts that have been paid under this program by your department have been like $6.78 million. So by logical extension, using the statute, you should have ostensibly saved about $67 million. And maybe I'm just, a little pedestrian in my thought process here, but if you're going to pay out $6.7 million under this, you should have saved 67. And I got to think that somewhere along the way, that would have popped up in somewhere like one of the budgets saying, you know what, we saved a ton of money and you'd be proud of us. I haven't seen that. None of us have seen that, but you're here and I'd like to know, have you actually saved under this program 67 some odd million dollars because you've paid out 6.7 over time using this statute?
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Representative, we paid out achievement bonuses based on providing efficient and more cost savings measures. We do not and did not measure those cost savings because we did not have in place a structure that was able to calculate exactly what those cost savings would be and then award those cost savings.
Representative Nash?
Well, Madam Chair, I didn't look at you there because you're going to give me the let's move on look, but this is a lot of money, Commissioner. This is a lot of money that we should have saved. We've paid out, the law outlines it, but you've decided to give out these rewards even though you can't figure out how to calculate that because you've got apparently no internal ability to track a project, like maybe a spreadsheet. I'm just flabbergasted that we're paying people $750 for standing up a web page and having great customer service with a smile. I expect that of people who work here. This is a service industry. This is something that should have been done. They don't need to be compensated unless they actually saved money. Now to my second question, I'm curious, and I apologize, I thought you had seen this document because it came out of your department, and why the redactions?
Madam Chair, Representative, I'd have to ask. I have no idea.
Okay, is your staff,
Representative Nash?
thank you, Madam Chair. Is Mr. Pollard here? Can he tell us maybe why the redactions? No?
Mr. Pollard?
Mr. Deputy Commissioner Hudson.
Mr. Hudson, can you help us out?
Mr. Hudson, unfortunately, those redactions are for those folks who did not get an award.
Representative Nash?
Well, Madam Chair, on line 12, I'm not so sure that's correct because there is a redaction made, but there's a payment noted, unless I'm reading that incorrectly. You know, and then there's another one on line 16 that's got a payment there, and there's a redaction. So, shall we try again?
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Hudson or
Representative, I don't
Commissioner?
appreciate the comment. The point is that some people who are nominated don't get awards, and sometimes there are multiple people that get an award. In this particular case, not all the people listed as nominees got the award.
Well,
Commissioner?
Madam Chair,
Representative Nash?
Madam Chair, I guess, you know, I'm just kind of disappointed that we're doing this type of reward. I love the idea of gain sharing. If we can have members of state government actually capture savings that we can point to and measure and are a repeatable, almost a scientific method process, that's fantastic. Because it ultimately saves the people of Minnesota some money. But this is a farce. And I had originally had an amendment drafted to kill off the whole thing because it's just throwing money out the window. I just think that it's ridiculous that we go down this path to fritter money away, to reward people for doing something they should have been doing anyway, and then come back and say, well, we didn't have the ability to measure it, so therefore we chose not to abide by the law, and we just gave the money out anyway. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner, I didn't quite catch what you said. So why were the names redacted? Why were they crossed out?
Madam Chair, there are many times a number of nominees for a particular award, and not everyone in the nominee list gets the actual award. And so only those people who actually got the award were listed in the column where there was an award.
Okay, so the ones that are crossed out, they didn't actually receive the award, is what you're saying?
Correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner, I guess I'm most concerned with is the department making law itself. I mean, to me, this was quite defined. It says determined, resulted, documented cost savings, and yet a program was designed to do something completely different. Where was the authority to do that program?
Commissioner.
Madam Chair, Representative, we implemented the program as best we could with no additional funding to provide the infrastructure to calculate these costs. So what we reported over almost 2 years ago to this committee was our results in implementing the Achievement Award process as a way to implement the principle of gain sharing, which other states have done as well. So we followed the law as best we could and implemented a process to reward people for cost-saving efforts.
Representative
Madam
Vogel.
Chair, and, you know, if the staffing wasn't there, I wasn't there at the time, I guess I'm just looking at it and saying that the way the statute was written and what you did are totally inconsistent, and therefore, it bothers me that that was done, and I'm wondering if there's other things that then are being done to be kind of interpreted, because, you know, I've noticed now in estimated 2017 that the average compensation, from what I can determine with your full-time equivalents and the compensation, is $119,000. And I'm just wondering, you know, that's a lot of money. When we start looking at things like this and then raising compensation throughout the department, are there other things that, and I know it's putting you on the spot for something that you maybe can't answer, but it makes me ask the question, are there other things that are going on like this as well? Because how can compensation be growing so much and yet we don't have the money to follow the law?
Commissioner.
Madam Chair, well, I'm certainly not aware of any of those, Representative. This reminds me of the situation when I was a young practicing lawyer, and one of the partners came to me and said, well, Myron, do you have any outstanding memos? And I said, well, Mr. Smith, all my memos are outstanding. So I have no knowledge of any reports that you're concerned about.
Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I've never, having been a lawyer, I didn't understand that completely relative to what I was asking. What I was asking is that how can, and how can we go beyond what is documented in statute to set up a program, which is pretty clear? And then is there anything else that's going on like that, especially relative to such a large increase in the average compensation? I mean, when I look at almost $120,000 of average compensation, it just blows me away. So I'm wondering, are there other things that are going on? And recognize maybe you can't answer that right now, but I would certainly like to see where the rationale came to be able to go outside of the statute.
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Representative, by average compensation, do you mean salary and benefits? I'm not quite following your comment there.
Madam Chair.
Representative Vogel?
Yeah, what I did was I went from the governor's budget book, and I just took the FTEs, divided them into the compensation, and it looks to me like it's gone up from, in 2016 actual, from 99,000 to 2017 estimated of 119,000, which is quite a bump. I recognize some of this is in the past, but if this was done to kind of circumvent things, I'm wondering what else might be going on, and kind of a rhetorical question relative to maybe the same thing with memos, but I guess I just don't see how we can deviate from statute. And the program then should not have been set up in the first place, is the way I'm looking at this. If you didn't have the staff, you didn't have the staff, and you can't do the program, but we have to not go beyond what statute says we should be spending. So.
Well, and this kind of raises the question for me, Commissioner. So when was this achievement program put in place? Was it before the statute was changed, before we put the gain sharing program in place as the legislature, or was it after that?
Madam Chair, I believe the statute was passed was it 2011?
It was.
Yes.
But your achievement program, when did that come into place, into being?
As far as I can remember, it was before I was at MMB, Madam Chair, but I believe it was 2012 or 2012.
So, Commissioner, at what point did you tell the legislature that you needed more guidance for the gain sharing program?
Madam Chair, I wasn't the commissioner at the time that it was passed or implemented, so I'm not sure what communications were made at that time. I simply know that we filed a report in July of 2015 outlining what we were doing to satisfy the statute.
And Commissioner, when did you come into play to be MMB? I'm trying to remember.
Madam Chair, it was January of 2015.
2015. And Commissioner, in 2013, and I know this is before your time, did the MMB, the department, ever come to the legislature and say this is not doable? In 2012, 2013, 2014, did they ever come and say to the legislature, we just aren't doing this program at all?
Madam Chair, first of all, I would dispute the fact that we're not doing the program at all, but secondly, I'll have to check and see what comments were made prior to when I became on board.
I think that would be helpful because, the legislature was operating under the assumption that the law that we passed was being followed. And I know that your department in particular has concerns with other legislation that we've passed. I think it's actually resulted in a veto of a tax bill because the language wasn't right according to MMB. But here we have the language. It gives you very clear directions on what to do, and yet you decided to kind of go your own route. So I share the concerns of Representative Nash and Representative Vogel. When we pass legislation, we actually expect it to be followed. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, Commissioner. Just to be clear, this gain sharing program is another unfunded mandate, and the $1 million in revenue that it claims, that's kind of dubious, it sounds like to me, because if I understand it right, remember your testimony yesterday, they're slashing your budget by 23%. Is that correct? And then they're throwing this unfunded mandate on you, and then if you don't realize the savings from this gain sharing program, they're going to cut your budget more? Is that the way this works?
Commissioner.
Madam Chair, Representative, that's my understanding.
Representative Johnson.
Okay, interesting. Let me ask you, Commissioner, we had a discussion yesterday, and there was some confusion with the chair, I believe, with the slashing of all these agencies on the effect on our public workers and the number that would be impacted. We cited the number, I think, Madam Chair, 4,000. Can you give me some sense? I'm looking at the numbers that I see in the bill that puts the limit on 31,691. Now, it's my understanding in 2017, we have as many as 36,000 employees working with the state. So to me, that sounds like a bigger impact than just a few hundred state workers. Can you give me some perspective on the impact of this budget slashing, arbitrary budget slashing has on our public worker sector?
Well, Representative Johnson, actually, if you look at the bill, it applies to the executive branch, and the numbers provided by MMB show that the executive branch in 2016 had 32,447 people. That's in the executive branch, and that's what the language in the bill applies to. If you go to 2015, they had 32,482. If you go to 2014, they had 32,259. If you go to 2013, you have 31,609. So between 2013 and 2014 is where the number that we have in this bill brings us back to for FTEs, and that's 31,691. So we're asking the state to slow the growth of FTEs to between 2013 and 2014. So 3.5 years ago, that's what we're asking the state to do. That's what we're asking the commissioner to do. We've actually put in the language that they are supposed to use retirement incentives to help achieve that goal, as well as we heard from the the state auditor yesterday that she holds open a position as long as a year. So the agencies themselves have the capabilities to do that without, if they wanted to, laying off a single person. They could do that within their own capabilities.
Madam Chair,
And Representative Johnson, so what we're asking is to go back just 3 years. That's how much government has grown in that short a period of time. So we have grown just from 2013, 2014, that's the year you guys were in charge. That's how much we have grown in state government.
thank you, Madam Chair, but the question was directed towards the commissioner.
Oh, I thought I
I'm
could give
interested
some
in the
extra information,
2017
too.
number of 36,000.
Commissioner,
Madam
what's
Chair.
the executive branch number?
Madam Chair, Representative, we would estimate that the executive branch number is around 33,000 right now. I think one of the difficulties is that you have to decide what point you're going to pick the FTE count. FTE is not a head count by any means. It's not the number of people we employ. For example, it includes overtime. If I kept track of my time, I'd be about 1.5 FTEs based upon the hours that I work. But for those people who do record, someone who works 60 hours a week on average would be 1.5 FTEs. So, and sometimes people work share jobs or they work half-time jobs. So it's really difficult to estimate. But I estimate that at the end of quarter 2 for 2017, around 33,000 FTEs. But once again, part of the difficulty is, as you know, during the tax season, the Department of Revenue hires some temporary employees or seasonal employees. In the summer, the Department of Revenue, the Department of Natural Resources hires some employees. So there's a lot of fluctuation year to year. So I guess, Madam Chair, I would simply ask if you want to put in a cap, or you want to stop hiring, or if you want to cut a number of people, just tell us how many people you want to cut. I think if you use the FTE count, it's going to cause problems, because what if we have another emergency, whether it's avian flu or Ebola, that we need to hire people right away? We need to be ready to respond to that. So I think the hard cap on FTEs is kind of is not a good measure to determine how many people you want to employ and how you want to employ them. I mean, one of the things that we try to do in state government is figure out where do we need to have people. We don't just hire people because we have a position open. And I think the idea that we need to cut by just cutting the number of jobs doesn't really do justice to the other departments that provide services to Minnesotans, where people want to have folks available. So I just think this is a very blunt instrument to try to control. And if you just indicate exactly what your goal is, whether it's to stop hiring or to eliminate certain positions, I think that might be a better way to approach the bill if that's what you would like to accomplish, Madam Chair.
Well, Commissioner, I think that we are putting ourselves in an unsustainable path with government and overall. We have a growth in government that is just quite honestly, unsustainable. And that growth in government takes money away from the priorities for the state. That takes money away from our schools. It takes money away from our roads. It takes those resources that are very precious to just grow government. And that's my concern, that we are on a path that's just completely unsustainable. And I think that that puts us in a very difficult position. And that's what I'm asking you as agencies. That's why I sent you a letter back in December, by the way, that asked you to prioritize where you think things should be. And I have yet to receive a complete answer from any of the agencies. And I think many of them said that they were waiting for you to provide that response, Commissioner, and I'm still waiting. That was how many months ago? 4 months ago, and I'm still waiting for that information.
Madam Chair, all of your questions have been answered by all the agencies.
No, they have not.
They provided written responses, and we can certainly go through all of those. If you find them inadequate, I'm happy to go through them with you.
I will definitely do that, Commissioner. Thank you. Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So being you're here, I had this question yesterday. So one of the things I remember in your test, when you came and testified a few months ago, you talked about the state recruiter, and you mentioned that yesterday, that would be a position. And I think FTEs, regardless if they're full-time, part-time, they're people. We're talking about cutting people. I mean, that's just bottom line. So that position is one that would be gone. And so could you talk a little bit, you mentioned there were some gains in who we hired throughout the state, women, people of color, veterans. Can you go back and just, you didn't share it in your testimony yesterday, but could you tell us exactly what some of those gains were with the statewide recruiter? And I get the idea that we grew government, you know, that there's concerns, but when there are gains like that, it seems like that's a really beneficial thing to our government, that we're hiring more veterans, that we're hiring more women, more people from different parts of the state. So could you speak to the statewide recruiter and what that would do if we lost that position?
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Representative, I think one of the things that we wanted to do after the census data came out several years ago, we saw the stark contrast in the gaps in employment with minorities and veterans and persons with disabilities. The governor was really concerned and instituted a diversity and inclusion office and an executive order. And so the governor and all of the enterprise has been very engaged in trying to do what we can to make sure that the workforce that we have at the state resemble or mirror that of the people that we serve. And so part of that process was realizing that we have many entry-level recruiting opportunities for people for entry-level jobs, but we also believed in the statewide executive recruiter that we needed to take more opportunity at the highest levels of state government throughout all the agencies. I think it's about 1,000 positions, the top level directors and assistant commissioners and deputy commissioners, and really get engaged in making sure that we expanded our pool of applicants that we look to fill those positions. And we've been able to increase the hiring in those areas. We're now, the persons with disabilities now make up 6.3% of the state's workforce, which is an improvement over what it was. We have over 7.5% who are veterans now, and 11.5% of persons who identify as racial or ethnic minorities, and 49.9% as women. So we need to, though, those numbers don't reflect the persons of ethnic backgrounds, don't reflect the diverse population that we have. So we've made progress, and our hiring rate has improved dramatically by about a 25% increase in diversity hiring just this last several years. But we need to do more because we still haven't finished that. So the executive statewide recruiter was really designed to make sure that at all levels of state government, we make government accessible to everybody.
Representative Olson? Representative O'Driscoll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Franz, in the bill, there's a provision that talks about if employees in the state of Minnesota have and can secure insurance elsewhere through a spouse or through another source, that they would be able to be exempted from the Minnesota insurance program. And I guess I'd like to just pursue a little bit. We heard some testimony yesterday after your testimony, and Representative Johnson had asked some questions. I just kind of want to go through with you, make sure I understand the numbers right, because as I was doing the quick math, I didn't come up with the same kind of result or outcome that was shared yesterday. Can you tell me if we do allow state employees who can secure insurance, health insurance, from another source? And when this bill came through my committee, I required that we have an amendment on it that said you have to provide proof of insurance because given the national and statewide issues that we have insurance, I do not want anybody to fall through the gaps on this. So I wanted to have signed documentation and proof that there would be replacement insurance for an individual. Can you tell me how you calculate that there would be a loss? I should say it was asserted yesterday that there would be kind of this exodus of people who would get insurance elsewhere, and that as a result of the savings, premiums would end up going up by about 6.2% for everyone else in the pool.
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, I didn't hear that testimony, so I guess we certainly, we understand the agreement, that we support the policy of letting people to opt out of getting insurance through the state if they so choose, but I'm not aware of those kind of numbers and the likely change. It was my understanding that the estimate would be that would be a fairly small number of people who would actually opt out of the insurance program.
Madam Chair?
Representative Driscoll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Commissioner Franz, we kind of heard a little bit of that same residual from yesterday's discussion, that there would be 4,000 employees that would be ending up leaving. Those individuals would not have insurance, this other exodus, and Mr. Kolonczewski yesterday was the one who made that statement, and it was at the questioning of Representative Johnson. So I'm a little confused that there would be a 6.2 or 6.3% increase in premiums when you'd have fewer people in the program. And the state pays, and you negotiate the contracts, but it's probably 95.5% or 90-10, something like that, where the state picks up 90% of the insurance premiums. It seems to me that that would be a sizable savings. Employee issues aside of what the bill does, but just those individuals who would opt out, I don't think that that would create a situation of adverse selection and then have premiums go up 6.2%.
Madam Chair, Representative, I'd certainly like to look at that a little bit more and maybe get back to you on those numbers if that's okay, because I'm concerned about that as well. I think that our understanding is that there are situations where people, especially in the veteran situation, where folks who have coverage and they don't really need to continue to buy the insurance that's required now by individuals. So we just have to look at that a little bit more closely. I'll get some more information for you.
Madam Chair?
Representative Driscoll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Franz, I would appreciate that. Again, it seems to me to be a logical thing, and it sounds like you agree, and I'll let you comment as you see fit on it, but if there's a redundancy where someone can get insurance through a spouse or other kind of situation and not be on the state plan, that's a savings to the state. There's insurance, net, everybody wins on that. It would appear to me, and actually kind of shift some of the risk to another insurance pool versus CGAP or other insurance plans. Is my logic jibe with your logic on that, or are we in the same?
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Representative, I think we are, but that may be because my knowledge base is lacking. But let me check on that to make sure that I'm not missing something.
Representative Driscoll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, you could just agree with me right now, then we would have no problems, Commissioner Franz. I mean, it's
That's true.
But again, I jest. But again, the idea is, I think that the logic makes sense, and I certainly look forward to your financial analysis of that. And maybe I misunderstood some stuff yesterday, but it just seemed to me, as I was kind of crunching some numbers last night and looking at it again this morning, it just didn't seem to make a large difference or an adverse selection issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Members, we've been asked to wrap up because we have a floor session. And just curious, Representative Johnson, we've got a couple more members on the list. But if we can wrap up before we go to session, then we don't have to come back. So Representative Ward, you're next on the list.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief. It's more of a comment, and I really appreciate the conversation, and particularly Representative O'Driscoll and the Commissioner's exchange just now. Just more of a comment about the challenges with emails or written communications instead of actual face-to-face. I think we're all looking for the same thing, to get more efficiency and better service for the state's dollars, for the taxpayers. And I want to flip this a little bit in that I'm concerned about the conversation about growing government as unsustainable. I agree. But I think that what we're really talking about is expectations. I think the expectations of what we're asking people to do and not giving them the resources, because we have limited resources, is what's unsustainable. So I think we need to have a little bit more of a conversation about what we expect and what our hopes and challenges are going to be, and have a little more conversation about that. So thank you.
Okay, Representative Quam?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my answers can be provided offline. I'd like confirmation of, I'm seeing on line 3 of the spreadsheet that was handed and generated by your department, it appears as if the nominator and nominatee have the same last name, and I'm just curious if they're related and if that breaks any of your internal controls on the system. And then I noticed there are different values that are assigned to different projects. And since you mentioned you didn't have the capability or competence within the organization to be able to calculate savings, how did you pick values that are different on here if you had no idea what the savings were? So those can be replied offline.
Okay. Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our side doesn't mind coming back either after
Oh, that's fine.
session,
Great.
so I don't think there's any need to hurry us through. Commissioner, just to be, this is such a slashing of state government agencies, again, with no focus on what it is you're supposed to slash or defining what it is the expectations are you're supposed to do. But just to be clear, the chair was talking about growth in state government, how huge it's getting, so on and so forth. But isn't it true that the number of employees at MMB is near its lowest point in the past 10 years? And that the required work has increased, the number of people served has grown significantly, and you have about 20% more employees than today, and at a time when the population of the state was 4% smaller. And I was looking at a thing from the Wall Street Journal that says Minnesota ranks 35 out of 50 states, or the 15th lowest with respect to state employees per capita. In fact, we have a lean workforce in the state of Minnesota. We don't have a bulging, burgeoning workforce. And this is something that's been going on over a number of years. Can you comment on that? Am I getting the numbers right so we can get some perspective on this?
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, representative, members of the committee, I think the key, and I certainly appreciate your comments, Madam Chair, in this area as well, but I do think that we are responding to demands for services. Certainly at Minnesota Management and Budget, the need to provide the ongoing accounting services and the needs that we have to make sure that we process the checks and the payments to and from state government, the payroll that we have at the state office, the budget process that we engaged in, the forecasting that we engage in, the human resources, all these take time. And in fact, the extent to which we are able to do our job really helps the people who deliver services like the state troopers or the state hospitals or in nursing homes. We really need, if MMB is not there to provide these overall human resource services and provide the accounting services and the HR services, we're just not going to be able to deliver the resources that people want out and around Minnesota. So we would disagree with your characterization, and we think that the government that we are providing is responding to the needs and the growth in services and the increased population. But we do think we run a very lean state compared to other states. And so we try to make sure that we only hire those people that we need. The governor, as you would appreciate, often asks us, Madam Chair and Representative, that what can you stop doing that you're doing in state government that doesn't need to be done anymore? Can you be more efficient? And if so, how? I mean, one of the things that we did at Minnesota Management and Budget and the Department of Administration was we merged our HR functions so that the HR services delivered to MMB and admin were run by a joint group because we weren't that large of an agency. So those are the kinds of things we do to be efficient and try to make sure that we only spend the dollars that we need to spend, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Representative Johnson?
Well, Just to follow up, it just seems if we're going to slash your agency by 23%, it'd be the responsibility of this committee to tell you what it is we don't want you to do, rather than just taking a blunt instrument and saying, don't, cut all these jobs or cut your budget by this amount, but not telling them what it is you don't want them to do. It just seems like a ridiculous way to govern. I mean, you wouldn't see this in private business, Madam Chair. You wouldn't see this sort of full-scale slashing of an agency without clarifying for them what your expectations were, what it is you no longer want them to do. It just seems like common sense that you would provide some direction, unless I'm missing something. But you can comment, Commissioner.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner.
I think part of the issue that's, we are like private sector in some ways, but we also have a lot of laws and requirements to do certain activities. And so that's one thing that I did not see in the bill was a lessening of the statutory responsibilities. So in fact, I saw an increase in statutory responsibility. So I think that, the state government is obligated to provide treatment and obligated to provide public safety and obligated to provide health opportunities. So there's a lot that we do that the citizens and this legislature has requested us to do, and we simply can't do it at this level of funding, in our view, Madam Chair.
Okay. Members, we are going to go into recess because we do have floor session. Commissioner, I'm going to ask that you come back again because we still have questions for you. And when you do come back, I'd like you to have the responses to Representative Quam's questions. So we'll start with that, I think, when you come back. And then also, Commissioner, we have given you direction on this bill of where we expect you to make changes to your budget, despite the fact that you didn't respond to all of my questions that was submitted to you back in December, 4 months ago. And I certainly can walk through that letter with you to kind of help you understand which pieces are still missing from that letter. So we can go through that too. And then also, members, we are talking about what is it, I think for MMB, since 2011, they've increased their budget by 23%. And we're asking them to try and slow the growth back to just 3.5 years ago, not even to the full 2011 session. So if we can't get a handle on this, this is going to jeopardize things like healthcare in the state. This is going to jeopardize our schools. This is going to jeopardize our schools and roads. So with that, Commissioner, look forward to having you come back. We have a whole list of members that have some more questions for you. And members, we are in recess.